"Mom, I gave your house to my in-laws. I thought you were going to die." Those words left my son's mouth as if they were simple, like someone commenting on the weather or asking for a glass of water. But for me, still lying in that hospital bed, with a weak body and a mind trying to understand where I was, those words were like a punch to the chest. I had just woken up from a coma that lasted 6 months. 6 months where my body rested, but my soul, I do not know where my soul was. And the first thing my only son said to me was not, "Thank God you are alive." It was not, "Mom, I was so afraid of losing you." No, it was that he had given away my house, the house I built with my own hands, with my sweat, with my years of work, to his in-laws, because he thought I was going to die. My name is Emily Parker. I am 60 years old, and this is my story. I was born in a small town south of Chicago. My mother sewed dresses for the ladies at church, and my father worked in construction. We did not have much, but we had dignity. My mother always said, "Emily, never ask for anything you cannot earn with your own hands." I carried that lesson with me all my life. At 22, I married David. He was a bricklayer, honest and hardworking. We had Michael 2 years later. I remember the day he was born as if it were yesterday. It was a January morning, cold with fog covering the streets. I held that baby in my arms and thought, I am going to give you everything I never had. And I did. David died when Michael was barely 8 years old. An accident at work, a beam that fell. He did not stand a chance. I was left a widow alone with a small child and not a penny saved, but I did not give up. I started cleaning houses. Later, I learned to cook catering platters and started selling homemade pies and casseroles at neighborhood parties. Little by little, I gathered money. I saved every dollar. I never bought anything for myself that was not essential. My clothes were the same for years. My shoes were patched up. Everything was for Michael. I paid for his school, his uniforms, his books, his field trips. When he wanted to study business administration at the university, I said yes, even knowing that meant working even more. I cleaned houses in the morning, sold food in the afternoon, and at night I ironed other people's clothes. Michael was everything to me. He was smart, polite. People in the neighborhood always commented, "You are so lucky. Emily, your son, is a good young man." And I believed it. At 32, Michael graduated. He got a good job at an accounting firm. I remember when he came home with the news. He hugged me tight and said, "Mom, now it is my turn to take care of you." I cried that day. I cried from relief, from joy, from accumulated exhaustion. But I also cried because deep down, a part of me knew that I had already given everything I had and that now, finally, I could rest. It was around that time that I bought my house. It was not big, it was not luxurious, but it was mine. It was on a quiet street in Oak Creek near where I grew up. It had 2 bedrooms, a small living room, and a kitchen that fit a wooden table I painted myself. In the back, there was a yard with an apple tree that bore fruit every year. I adored that apple tree. Every morning, I drank my coffee sitting on the patio, looking at that tree. The scent of apples mixed with the fresh morning air made me feel that everything had been worth it. Michael liked the house, too. He came to visit me every weekend. He brought pastries, we sat in the kitchen and talked. He told me about work, about his colleagues, about life. It was simple. It was good. I thought that was what I had conquered. Peace, a home, the company of my son. At 35, Michael met Jessica. He introduced her to me one Sunday after church. Jessica was pretty well dressed with painted nails and hair always done. She smiled a lot, but her smile never reached her eyes. I noticed it from the first day, but I said nothing because Michael was in love, and I, as a mother, wanted him to be happy. Jessica came from a middle-class family. Her father owned a hardware store, and her mother was a retired teacher. They lived in a bigger house than mine, in a better neighborhood, and Jessica never let me forget it. When she came to visit, she looked around as if she were evaluating. She touched the furniture with the tips of her fingers, as if she were afraid of getting her hands dirty. Once, while I was serving coffee, she commented, "Emily, do not. You think this house is a little Old Michael deserves to live in a better place. Do not you think I smiled? But inside, something hurt. Michael married Jessica 6 months later. The reception was at her parents' house. I helped pay for a part of it, even though I could barely afford it because he was my son, and I always did everything for my son. After the wedding, they rented a small apartment. Jessica complained all the time. She said the place was cramped, that the neighborhood was noisy, that she deserved more. Michael started working longer hours. He came back tired, stressed, but every time I asked him if everything was okay, he said yes. I am just building our future mom. Years passed. Jessica never got pregnant. We never talked about it, but I saw a bitterness growing in her eyes. She started visiting me less, and when she came, she always had a sharp comment. "Emily, do not. You get tired of cooking the same thing. Is this tablecloth the same one from 5 years ago? Michael says you do not want to change that old furniture. Why are you so attached to the past?" I never answered. I just smiled because I had learned throughout life that some battles are not worth fighting. Michael also started coming less always with excuses. A lot of work commitments, tiredness, but I understood, or at least I tried to understand. I remember a September afternoon about 1.5 years ago. Michael came to visit me alone. He sat with me on the patio, looking at the apple tree. He seemed distant. "Mom," he said, "have you ever thought about selling this house?" I froze. "Sell." Why, he shrugged. "I do not know. It is a big house for you alone, and the money could help you. I do not know to live better." I looked at him, trying to understand. "Michael, this house is what I have. Here are my memories, my years of work. I do not need anything else." He stayed silent for a moment, then nodded, but he did not seem convinced. Now, while I am here in this hospital bed remembering that day, I understand. He was already planning, and I naive thought it was just a conversation. It was 7 months ago when everything changed. I was at home preparing lunch. I felt dizzy. I thought it was just fatigue, so I sat down for a moment. But the dizziness got worse. The room started to spin. My vision blurred. I tried to get up, but my legs did not obey. I fell. The last thing I remember is the cold floor against my face and the scent of apples coming from the yard. Then everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a white room. Bright lights smell of disinfectant machines beeping around me. I did not know where I was. I did not know how much time had passed. A nurse entered, and seeing me awake, she smiled with relief. "Mrs. Parker, thank God. I am going to call the doctor." My throat was dry. I tried to speak, but only a hoarse whisper came out. Where am I in the hospital, ma'am? You had a stroke. You were in a coma for 6 months. 6 months, half a year of my life. Gone." A few minutes later, the doctor entered. He checked my vitals. He asked questions. I answered what I could, but my head was still confused. "I am going to notify your son," said the nurse. Michael. My heart filled with hope. He must be desperate, worried. He must be suffering for me. He arrived 2 hours later. He entered the room with Jessica by his side. She was impeccable as always. Michael looked tired. But no, he did not look relieved. He looked annoyed. I smiled, although weakly, although with pain. Michael, my son. He got closer, but he did not hug me. He stood there, arms crossed. "Mom, it is good that you woke up." His voice was cold, formal. Jessica stayed near the door, checking her phone. I tried to extend my hand towards him, but Michael took a step back, and then he said it. "Mom, I gave your house to my in-laws. I thought you were going to die." The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at him, waiting for it to be a bad joke, but his face was serious. Jessica looked up from her phone and completed with a calm voice. "Find another place to live." Something inside me broke in that moment. It was not rage. It was not despair. It was clarity. I looked at my son, the boy I held in my arms, whom I fed, clothed, educated, and I saw a stranger. I said nothing. I just closed my eyes and breathed deep, and in that silence I made the most important decision of my life. I was not going to argue. I was not going to beg. I was not going to lower myself. I was going to do what I always did, solve everything with my own hands. And they still did not know what was coming. I spent 3 more days in the hospital. 3 days where nurses came in and out, where doctors checked my vital signs, where tasteless food arrived on plastic trays. But none of that mattered. My mind was somewhere else. It was in my house on my patio under the shade of my apple tree. I thought about how things had been before. Before Jessica. Before my son became someone I no longer recognized. And while I looked at the white ceiling of that hospital room, I allowed myself to remember. I remembered when everything was different. Michael was a sweet boy. I do not say this just because he was my son. I say it because it was true. When he was 5 years old, he used to wake up early and come to the kitchen while I prepared breakfast. He sat on a wooden chair with his legs dangling because he still could not reach the floor, and looked at me with those big dark eyes. "Mom, can I help you?" I gave him a wooden spoon, and he stirred whatever I was cooking. Beans, oatmeal, whatever. It did not matter. The important thing was being together. I remember an April morning when he was 6 years old, he brought me a flower he had pulled from the neighbor's garden. It was a purple wildflower, all crumpled because he had squeezed it too tight in his little hand. "It is for you, Mom, because you are the prettiest." I kept that flower between the pages of my Bible. I still have it dry, fragile, but still there. That was the Michael I knew. The boy who cried when he saw a stray dog because he wanted to take it home. The boy who hugged me before sleeping and told me, "Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a huge house." I stroked his hair and told him I do not need a huge house. "My love, I just need you to be happy." And I meant it. David had died in August. August is a cruel month. It is hot, the air is heavy, and that year was worse because my world collapsed. I remember the day they came to knock on the door. 2 men from the construction company where David worked held their hard hats in their hands and kept their eyes low. "Ma'am, there was an accident." I do not remember much of what they said after. Something about a beam, about negligence, about it being instant, but none of that mattered. David was dead, and I was alone with an 8-year-old boy. The funeral was simple. We did not have money for something big. Some flowers, a modest casket, the priest saying words that were lost in the wind. Michael was quiet the whole time. He did not cry, he just held onto my hand tightly as if he were afraid that I would also disappear. That night when I tucked him in, he finally spoke. "Mom, is Dad coming back?" I broke. I lay down beside him, hugged him tight, and cried. I cried everything I had not been able to cry during the day. And he hugged me too with his thin little arms and told me, "Don't cry, Mom, I am going to take care of you." He was 8 years old, and he already wanted to take care of me. And I swore in that moment that I would do everything possible so that he had a better life than mine. The first years were the hardest. I worked from 6 in the morning until 10 at night. I cleaned houses in neighborhoods where the ladies looked at me with pity. "Poor thing," they said, "so young and already a widow." I did not care about the pity, I cared about the money. Every dollar I earned, I kept in a cookie tin, hidden under my bed. That tin was my future. It was Michael's education. It was our food. It was everything. Michael went to school in the mornings, and in the afternoons he stayed with the neighbor, Mrs. Higgins. She was an older woman kind who did not charge me much to watch him. Sometimes, when I arrived to pick him up, Michael was doing homework at Mrs. Higgins' kitchen table, surrounded by pots and the smell of chicken soup. "He is a very polite boy," Emily, Mrs. Higgins, told me. "He never gives trouble." And it was true. Michael never caused trouble, never asked for expensive toys, never complained that we could not go on school trips, never demanded anything. When he turned 10, I gave him a used soccer ball I bought at the flea market. It was a little deflated with dirt stains, but he hugged it as if it were the best gift in the world. "Thanks, Mom. It is perfect." That night, watching him play in the street with the other neighborhood kids, I felt that everything was going to be okay, that as long as he was happy, I could endure anything. When Michael was 12, he started helping me. I did not ask him to. He just did it. One Saturday morning, while I was getting ready to go sell pies at the downtown square, he appeared in the kitchen with a cardboard box. "I will help you carry Mom." "No, my love, you rest. It is your day off. I want to help you." And so he did. He carried that heavy box for 4 blocks to the square. He stayed with me all morning, helping me serve, collect money, pack the pies. People smiled seeing him. "What a hard-working son you have, Emily," and I nodded, full of pride. That afternoon when we got home, I gave him half the earnings of the day. "Here it is for you, you earned it." He shook his head. "No, Mom, keep it. It is for the house." I insisted, but he did not accept. "Someday I am going to earn a lot of money," he said with that seriousness of a child that still breaks my heart to remember. "And I am going to buy you everything you need. You do not have to work so hard." I hugged him tight, so tight I probably hurt him a little, but I did not care, because in that moment I felt that it was all going to be worth it. Michael was always smart. In high school, he got the best grades in his class. The teachers called to congratulate me. "Your son has a future, Mrs. Parker. He should keep studying." And I had already decided. It did not matter how much I had to work. Michael was going to college. When the time came to enroll him, I sold my only jewelry, a silver ring David had given me when we got married. It was not worth much, but it was enough to pay for enrollment and books. Michael cried when he found out. "Mom, you should not have sold that. It was just a ring, my love. You are more important." He stayed quiet, but I saw something in his eyes, something like guilt, as if he felt he was a burden. I took his face in my hands and forced him to look at me. "Listen to me well, Michael. You will never be a burden to me. You are the best thing that has happened to me in life. Do you understand?" He nodded, but tears kept running down his cheeks. I hugged him, and in that hug I made another silent promise, that he would never have to worry about anything, that I would handle everything. And so it was. During 4 years of college, I worked double. I cleaned houses, sold food-ironed clothes. My hands filled with calluses. My back started to hurt. But it did not matter because Michael was studying. And when he graduated with honors, when he went up on stage to receive his diploma and looked for me in the crowd to smile at me, I knew I had done the right thing. It was in those years that I bought the house. I had saved for 15 years, dollar by dollar, coin by coin. The cookie tin under my bed had filled, emptied, and refilled so many times I lost count. But finally, I had enough for the down payment on a small house. I saw it one Sunday after church. It was for sale with a sign half falling off the door. It was modest with unpainted brick walls, old windows, and neglected yard, but it had potential. I spoke with the owner, an older man who was moving with his daughter to another city. I offered him everything I had. It was not much, but he accepted. "It is yours, ma'am. Take care of it." And I did. I spent months fixing it. I painted the walls myself. I repaired the windows with the help of a neighbor. I cleaned the yard, pulled the weeds, planted the apple tree. Michael was 17 then. He helped me every weekend. He carried buckets of paint, moved furniture, swept. "It is going to look beautiful, Mom," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. And he was right. When we finally finished, when I sat on the patio for the first time with a cup of coffee and looked around, I felt something I had not felt in years. Peace. This was my house, our home, the place where Michael and I could finally rest after so many years of struggle. But good things never last forever. Michael entered the university at 19. It was hard to pay for it, but I was already used to hard things. During those 4 years, I saw him change. Not all at once. It was gradual. He started dressing differently. He left the simple t-shirts and started wearing collared shirts. He styled his hair with gel. He bought shoes that I knew cost more than he said. A friend gave them to me. Mom. He didn't use them anymore. I did not believe him, but I said nothing. He also started coming home late. He said he had to study at the library, that he had group projects, but sometimes he arrived smelling of beer. "Are you okay, my love?" "Yes, Mom. Just tired." and I let him go to his room without further questions, because I trusted him, because he was my son, and because I never thought he could turn into someone I would not recognize. He graduated at 23. He got a job quickly at an accounting firm downtown. The salary was good, better than what I had earned in my whole life. "Now it is my turn to take care of you, Mom," he told me the day he received his first check. He gave me $1,000. $1,000. I cried. I tried to refuse, but he insisted. "Please, Mom, let me do this." And I accepted. For the next few years, Michael helped me financially. Not much, but enough so I could work less, so my hands could rest a little, so my back would not hurt so much. He came to visit every weekend. He brought pastries, sometimes flowers. We sat on the patio under the apple tree and talked. He told me about work, about his bosses, about his colleagues. I cooked his favorite dish, casserole with rice. "Nobody cooks like you, Mom." And I smiled, because those moments were everything to me. Those simple moments without complications where it was just him and me, mother and son, as it always should have been. But then he met Jessica, and everything changed. At first, it was subtle. Michael started coming less on weekends. "I have a dinner with friends, Mom. I went out with someone from work. I am going to be late. Do not wait for me." And I understood. He was young. He needed his life. But when he finally introduced her to me, I knew something was wrong. It was not because of how she looked. Jessica was pretty well-groomed, polite. It was because of how she looked at me, as if I were less, as if my house were less, as if everything I had built was worth nothing. I remember that first Sunday. They arrived after church. Michael wore a big smile. "Mom, this is Jessica, my girlfriend." Jessica extended her hand, but she did not smile with her eyes. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Parker." "Likewise, honey. Come in, come in." I made coffee. I took out the sweetbread I had bought that morning. The mugs were old, but they were clean. The table was wooden worn, but sturdy. Jessica sat carefully as if she were afraid of getting dirty. While I served coffee, I saw her looking around. Her gaze stopped on the faded curtains on the walls with old paint on the calendar hanging on the wall, and I saw something in her expression. Contempt. Michael did not notice. He was too busy looking at her with eyes full of adoration. "Mom makes the best coffee," he said. Jessica took a sip and smiled, but the smile was not sincere. "It is good." We spent an hour talking, or rather, I asked questions, and Jessica responded with short, polite, empty answers. When they left, Michael hugged me. "Thanks, Mom." Jessica was a little nervous, but she liked you. I smiled and nodded, but in my heart, I knew the truth. Jessica was not nervous. Jessica was evaluating me, and I had failed the test. Now lying in this hospital bed with the constant beeping of machines around me, I understand everything. I understand that from that first day, Jessica saw my house as something she could take. I understand that Michael, little by little, stopped being my son and became her husband. I understand that while I gave everything, they just waited. They waited for me to disappear, and they almost succeeded, but I woke up. And now everything was going to change. Michael's wedding to Jessica was in June. June is a rainy month, but that year the sky was clear, as if even the weather conspired for everything to go perfectly. The wedding was in the garden of Jessica's parents' house, a big house, 2 stories with white columns and a garden full of roses. There were tables with white tablecloths, centerpieces with expensive flowers, uniformed waiters serving champagne. I arrived early with the nicest dress I had. I had bought it used at a thrift store, but it was in good condition. Beige simple, with long sleeves. I did my hair myself, pulled back in a low bun. When I arrived, Jessica's mother, Sarah, received me with a tense smile. "Emily, good thing you arrived. Come, let me introduce you to the family." She took me from table to table, introducing me as the groom's mother. People nodded, smiled politely, and then continued talking among themselves. I did not fit in there. I knew it from the moment I saw the dresses of the other ladies, designer dresses, gold jewelry, elaborate hairstyles, and there I was with my used dress and my shoes from 10 years ago. But I did not care. I was there for Michael. I saw him at the altar waiting. He looked so handsome in his black suit, nervous but happy. When our eyes met, he smiled at me, and for a moment I saw again the boy who told me, "When I grow up, I am going to buy you a huge house." Jessica walked in on her father's arm. She wore a white dress elaborate with beads that shone in the sun. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup impeccable. She was beautiful. And when she reached the altar and took Michael's hand, I saw in my son's eyes something that hurt me. Absolute adoration. The ceremony was short. The priest spoke about love, commitment, family. Michael and Jessica said their vows. They kissed. People applauded. And I, sitting in the first row on the groom's side, applauded too, although something inside me felt broken. The party was long. There was music, dancing, food dishes I had never tasted, wine that cost more than I earned in a week. I sat at a table in the back alone most of the time. Some of Jessica's aunts came to talk to me, but the conversation was always brief, awkward. "And what do you do for a living, Mrs. Parker?" "I sell food, catering, homemade pies." "Ah, how nice, how hard-working." And then they left. Michael came to see me once between dances. "Are you okay, Mom?" "Yes, my love. Everything is beautiful. I am very happy for you." He kissed me on the forehead and returned to Jessica. I stayed there watching them dance under the lights hanging from the trees. Jessica laughed. Michael looked at her as if she were the only thing that existed in the world, and I felt I was losing him. Not all at once, but little by little, like sand, slipping through fingers. I helped pay part of the wedding. Michael did not ask me, but I insisted. "Mom, you do not have to do it. I have savings. I want to do it, my love. You are my only son. Let me help." I gave him $3,000. It was all I had saved that year. Money I had kept selling food cleaning houses. Michael accepted it, but I saw in his eyes something like pity. "Thanks, Mom. I am going to pay you back. I do not want you to pay me back. It is my gift to you." But he never saw it that way. Neither did Jessica. Months later, during a lunch at my house, I heard Jessica talking to Michael in the living room while I prepared coffee in the kitchen. "I cannot believe you accepted that money from her." Poor thing, she surely was left with nothing. Her tone was not compassionate, it was mocking. Michael murmured something I did not manage to hear. "I just do not understand why she lives in this house that is so old. She could sell it, move to a smaller apartment, more modern. This is too much for her alone." I stood still with the coffee pot in my hand. Michael did not answer. And that silence hurt me more than any word. The first months after the wedding, Michael kept coming to visit me. Not as often as before, but he came. Sometimes he brought Jessica. Other times he came alone. When he came alone, it was like before. We sat on the patio under the apple tree and talked. He told me about work, about married life, about the plans he had. "Jessica wants us to buy our own house, Mom. We are saving." "That is good, my love. A house is important." "Yes, although sometimes I feel we are never going to gather enough. Everything is so expensive." I listened to him, nodded, served him more coffee. But when Jessica came with him, everything was different. She sat on the edge of the chair as if she were afraid of getting dirty. She looked at her phone most of the time. She answered with monosyllables when I spoke to her, and always she had something to criticize. "Emily, why do not you change these curtains? They are very old. This table is very scratched. Have not you thought about buying a new one? The patio would be better if you put tile down. This dirt gets full of dust." I smiled and said, "You are right. Honey, someday I will do it." But I never did, because this was my house, and I liked it just as it was. A year passed. Michael and Jessica were still renting the same small apartment. Jessica complained constantly. "I cannot live like this forever, Michael. We deserve something better." Michael worked more hours. He came home tired, stressed. He started looking thinner with bags under his eyes. One night, he came to see me alone. It was Friday around 9. It was raining. He arrived soaked without an umbrella. "Michael, what happened?" He entered without saying anything. He sat at the kitchen table with his hands in his hair. "I am tired, Mom." I sat in front of him, of what my love of everything, of work, of the pressures, of not being enough. I took his hands. "You are more than enough. Do not let anyone make you feel otherwise." He stayed quiet for a moment. Then he looked up. "Jessica wants us to buy a house, but I do not have enough money for the down payment. I have been looking for loans, but interest rates are sky high. Give it time, my love. It will come. I do not know if she can wait anymore. She is very frustrated." Something in his voice hurt me, as if Jessica's frustration was more important than his own peace. "Michael, listen to me. You cannot live just to please someone else, not even your wife." He looked at me surprised. "Mom, I am telling the truth. Marriage is of two. If she cannot have patience, then the problem is not yours. It is hers." He stayed in silence. Then he nodded, but he did not look convinced. That night, he stayed to sleep in his old room, and for a moment, everything was like before. My son under my roof, safe at peace. But things did not improve. Jessica started calling Michael at all hours. I knew because when he came to visit, his phone would not stop ringing. "It is Jessica. She wants me to come home. But you just got here. I know, Mom. But she is upset. She says I left her alone all day, and he left." Every time that happened, I stood at the door watching him walk away, and I felt I was losing him more and more. 2 years after the wedding visits became increasingly scarce. Michael only came once a month, sometimes not even that. When I asked him why, he always had an excuse. "Too much work, Mom. Jessica does not feel well. We have commitments." And I nodded, although inside something broke a little more each time. It was around that time I started noticing Michael was different, not just busier, more distant. He spoke less, he smiled less. When he came to visit, he stayed only an hour and then left. "Sorry, Mom, I have to go, but you have not even tasted the casserole. Next time, I promise." But next time was always the same, and little by little, I stopped cooking for him, because I knew he would not stay to eat. 3 years after the wedding, Jessica and Michael still had no children. I never asked. It was not my place, but Jessica mentioned it once during one of her few visits. We were sitting in the living room. Michael had gone to the bathroom, and suddenly Jessica said, "We cannot have children." I looked at her surprised. "I'm so sorry, honey. It is not your problem." Her voice was cold, but Michael is taking it badly. "He says he wanted to give you grandchildren. Give it time. There are other options. I do not want to talk about it." She cut me off. "I just tell you so you know, so you are not expecting grandchildren that are never going to arrive." And there it was again. That tone, that barely hidden contempt. Michael returned and the conversation ended. But from that day, something changed in the relationship between Jessica and me. She no longer feigned kindness. She no longer smiled when she saw me. She just looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes, as if she were waiting for something. 4 years after the wedding, Michael came to visit me one September afternoon. He was alone. He sat with me on the patio, looking at the apple tree. There were apples hanging from the branches. The air smelled fresh of recent rain. "Mom," he said without looking at me, "have you ever thought about selling this house?" I felt the air escape my lungs. "Sell?" Why, he shrugged. "I do not know. It is big for you alone. And the money could help you. You could move to a smaller place, easier to maintain." "Michael, this house is my home. Here are all my memories. Your dad and I, we built this together. You grew up here. I know, Mom. I was just thinking out loud." There was a long silence. "Did Jessica ask you to ask me this?" Michael did not answer, and that lack of answer was all the answer I needed. I looked at him. My son, the boy I had carried in my arms, the young man who had promised to take care of me. And I saw a stranger. I am not going to sell my house, Michael. It is okay, Mom. It was just a question. And he stayed half an hour more, and then he left. And I stayed sitting on the patio under the apple tree with a broken heart, because that question was not innocent. It was a test, and I had just failed it. The following months were strange. Michael stopped coming completely. He called once in a while, but conversations were brief. "How are you, Mom? Good, my love. And you good?" "Busy. I will call you later." And he hung up. I tried not to think too much about it. I tried to convince myself it was normal, that he was busy, that he had his own life. But deep down, I knew the truth. He was drifting away from me, and I did not know how to stop it. It was in December of that year when I felt the first dizziness. I was in the kitchen baking pies to sell at the holiday market. Suddenly, everything started to spin. I grabbed the edge of the table and waited for it to pass. It passed. But 2 days later, it happened again, and then again. I went to the doctor at the community clinic. He ran some tests. He told me my blood pressure was high. "You have to take care of yourself, ma'am. Less salt, less stress, more rest." I nodded. I took the pills he prescribed, but I did not say anything to Michael, because I knew that if I told him, he would come only out of obligation, and I did not want that. I wanted him to come because he loved me, not because he felt guilty. Another year passed. The dizziness continued. Sometimes it was mild, other times strong. But I kept going. I kept selling food. I kept taking care of my house. I kept waiting for Michael to come back. And then one afternoon in May, everything changed. I was in the kitchen, as always, preparing lunch. The radio was on. They were playing an old country song. Suddenly, I felt the floor move under my feet, but this time it did not stop. I tried to grab onto something, but my hands did not respond. I fell, and before everything turned black, I managed to think, "Michael, forgive me." I do not remember the hospital. I do not remember the ambulance or the lights or the voices of the paramedics. The only thing I remember is waking up in darkness, a complete, silent, heavy darkness. I could not move my body. I could not open my eyes. I could not speak, but I could hear. At first, they were just distant sounds, beeping, muffled voices, hurried steps. Then, little by little, I started to recognize words. Severe stroke. She is in a coma. We do not know when she will wake up if she wakes up. And then I heard Michael's voice. How long can she be like this? He did not sound anguished. He sounded tired. The doctor answered something I did not hear well, but I caught loose words. Weeks, months. There are no guarantees. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him I was there, that I could hear him not to leave me, but my body did not respond, and everything went back to darkness. The coma is a strange place. It is not like sleeping. It is not like dreaming. It is like being suspended between two worlds, neither here nor there. Sometimes I heard voices. Sometimes I felt hands touching mine. But I could not answer. The first days or weeks, I'm not sure I heard Michael coming to visit me. He would come in, sit next to my bed, and talk. "Mom, I do not know if you can hear me. The doctors say that maybe you can, that maybe it helps." He paused. "Jessica says we have to be realistic, that you would not want to live like this." Another longer pause. "I do not know what to do, Mom. I do not know what you want me to do." And then he would leave. I wanted to scream at him. "I am here. I am fighting. Do not leave me." But I could not. Michael's visits became less frequent. At first, he came every day, then every 2 days, then once a week. And when he came, he did not talk as much anymore. He just sat in silence. Sometimes he whispered, "I am sorry, Mom." But he never said why he was sorry. One day I heard Jessica. It was the first time she came, or at least the first time I heard her. Her voice was cold, impatient. "Michael, we cannot keep paying this. The hospital is expensive. It is my mother, Jessica." "I know, but the doctors say she can be like this for months or years." Are we going to spend all our savings on this? What do you want me to do? Pull the plug. I am not saying that. I am just saying that we have to think about ourselves too. There was a silence. She has a house, Jessica said. A big house. It is empty. We could… No. Michael's voice sounded firm. I am not going to touch her house. I am not saying you sell it. Just that we use it, temporarily, while she is here. Jessica, I already said no. I heard steps walking away, a door closing hard, and then silence. I wanted to cry. I wanted to hug my son and tell him I was proud of him for defending me, but I could not do anything, just listen. Weeks passed, or so I think. Time did not exist in that dark place. Michael's visits became shorter and shorter. He came in, sat for 5 minutes and left. Sometimes he did not even speak, and I was there trapped in my own body, screaming in silence. Then one day, everything changed. I heard new voices, voices I did not recognize. It is a beautiful house, and it is in good condition. Yes, my mother-in-law took very good care of it. It was Jessica, talking to someone, and she agrees with you moving here. She is indisposed in the hospital, but I am sure she would not mind. It is family after all. My heart, if it was still beating in any way I could feel, sank. Well, if you are sure, completely sure, you can move in whenever you want. No, 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 no. Jessica was giving away my house. My house. The place I built with my sweat. The place where my son grew up. The place where all my memories were. And I could not do anything to stop her. The following days were torture. I heard fragments of conversations. Jessica talking on the phone. Yes, Mom, I already told you that you can use the house. It is big. You are going to be comfortable. Michael with a tired voice. Are you sure about this, Jessica? Michael, your mother is not going to wake up. The doctors said it. And even if she wakes up, do you think she is going to be able to live alone? She is going to need care. It is better that the house is occupied. They did not say she is not going to wake up. They said they do not know. It is the same. No, Jessica, it is not the same. But his voice had no conviction. He sounded defeated, as if he had already lost the battle. And then one day I heard Jessica's parents, older voices, polite, grateful. Thank you very much, Michael. Really, you do not know how much we appreciate this. No problem, Frank. The house was empty anyway. And your mom? How is she? A silence. The same. No changes. Poor woman. But well, at least her house is not alone. We are going to take good care of it. Thank you. And like that, just like that, my in-laws, who were not even mine but my daughter-in-laws, moved into my house. To my home. To the place where I planted the apple tree with my own hands. And I could do nothing but listen. Listen to how they dismantled my life while I fought to return to it. More weeks passed, or months. I do not know. Time became a blurry stain. Sometimes I heard the nurses talking about me. Poor lady, she has been like this for 3 months. Does the sun still come? Hardly. Maybe once a week. How sad being alone like this. But I was not alone. I was surrounded by machines, by beeping, by voices of strangers. Only I could not answer them. 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. Michael's visits almost disappeared. He came once every 2 weeks, sometimes every 3. And when he came, he only stayed minutes. Hi, Mom, I'm still here. Jessica and I. We are fine. Jessica's parents are taking care of your house. It is all good. All good. All good. While I was trapped in the darkness, while strangers lived in my house, while my son forgot me little by little, all good. But then something started to change. I do not know how to explain it. It was as if a small light turned on in the darkness. At first I could not move, but I started to feel. I felt a hand touching mine, a nurse probably. I felt the sun coming through the window warm against my skin. I felt the smell of disinfectant, of clean sheets, and then slowly I started to hear more clearly. The voices were no longer muffled, they were crisp. Her vital signs are improving. Do you think she can wake up? It is possible. I have seen cases like this, and then one day I felt I could move a finger. Just one. But it was something. It was a sign that I was coming back. I do not know how much time passed between that first movement and the moment I finally opened my eyes. Maybe days, maybe weeks. But one day, simply, I did it. I opened my eyes. The light was blinding. I blinked several times trying to focus. There was a nurse in the room checking something on a machine. When she saw me awake, her eyes went wide. Mrs. Parker. My God. She ran towards the door. Doctor, doctor, she woke up. Everything was chaos after that. Doctors coming in, checking me, asking me questions. Do you know where you are? I nodded weakly. Do you know your name, Em? Emily. My voice was a hoarse whisper. Excellent. Do you know what month it is? I did not know. The doctor smiled. Do not worry. It is normal. You have been in a coma for 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of my life. Lost. We are going to call your son. And then something in my chest tightened. Michael. He was coming. And I had to tell him about the house. I had to. But then I remembered. I remembered the conversations I had heard. I remembered Jessica saying, she is not going to wake up. I remembered Michael saying Jessica's parents are taking care of your house. And in that moment, lying in that hospital bed after 6 months of darkness, I made a decision. I was not going to be the victim. I was not going to beg. I was not going to cry. I was going to do what I had always done, solve things with my own hands. But first, I had to hear what Michael had to say. I had to see if my son was still there under Jessica's influence or if I had lost him forever. Michael arrived 2 hours later. He entered the room with Jessica by his side. He looked tired. She impeccable. I looked at them from the bed with my body still weak but my mind clearer than it had been in years. Michael approached slowly. Mom, it is good that you woke up. His voice was flat without real emotion. Jessica stayed by the door looking at her phone. I tried to smile, but I could not. Michael took a step closer, but he did not touch me. And then he said it. The words that had been waiting to come out for 6 months. The words that would confirm everything I had heard in the darkness. Mom, I gave your house to my in-laws. I thought you were going to die. The room went silent. I looked at him. He looked at me with those tired eyes as if he were waiting for me to scream, to cry, to reproach him. But I did none of that. Jessica looked up from her phone and said with that cold voice I knew so well, "Find another place to live." And there it was, the complete truth. My son had betrayed me, and his wife was there making sure I understood that I no longer had a place in my own life. I closed my eyes for a moment. I breathed deep, and when I opened them, something inside me had changed. I was no longer the submissive mother who forgave everything. I was no longer the woman who stayed quiet in the face of offenses. I was Emily Parker, the woman who had survived widowhood poverty 6 months in a coma, and I was not going to let them take what was mine. I understand, I said with a calm voice. Michael blinked, surprised by my calm. You understand? Yes, I understand perfectly. Jessica frowned, confused. So, Mom, there's nothing to solve. The house already. I know Michael. I heard everything. He froze. What I heard everything. During the coma, every conversation, every decision you made without me. Jessica went pale. Michael opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Now. I continued with a firm voice, although my body trembled from the effort. I want you to get out of this room and not come back until I call you. Mom. Get out, Michael. He looked at me for a moment more. Then he lowered his head and left. Jessica followed him. But before crossing the door, she shot me a a look that said, "This does not end here." And she was right. It did not end there. It was just beginning. I spent 4 more days in the hospital after that encounter. 4 days where doctors ran tests, therapies, constant checkups. 4 days where I had to relearn basic things: walking without wobbling, holding a spoon without my hand shaking, speaking without my tongue getting stuck. The body is strange. It can be asleep for 6 months and forget things you thought were permanent, but the mind was clearer than ever. During those 4 days, while nurses helped me walk down the hall, while physical therapists guided me in simple exercises, I thought about everything I had heard during the coma. I thought about the conversations between Michael and Jessica. I thought about how they had given away my house without my consent. And I thought about what to do about it. Because one thing was clear: I was not going to sit with my arms crossed. Michael did not come back to visit me during those 4 days. He called once the second day after I woke up. He spoke with the nurse. He asked how I was and asked her to give me a message. "Your son says he's busy with work, but he will come soon." I nodded, but I knew the truth. He did not come because he was afraid to face me, afraid that I would reproach him, and he was right to be afraid. Jessica did not come either, but that did not surprise me. She had never come before. Why would she start now? The 3rd day in the hospital, I asked to speak with the social worker. She was a young woman about 30 with glasses and a kind smile. "Mrs. Parker, how can I help you? I need to make some calls, and I need information." She sat next to my bed. She took out a notebook. "Tell me." I was in a coma for 6 months. During that time, my son made decisions about my property without my consent. I need to know what rights I have. She frowned. What kind of decisions he gave my house to other people? He said they could live there, but the house is in my name. I never signed anything. The social worker wrote quickly. "Does he have power of attorney over you?" "No, I never signed anything like that." "Then he had no legal right to make those decisions." I nodded. "I thought so. Can you help me contact a lawyer?" She nodded. "Of course. There are free legal services for people in your situation. Let me make some calls." And so, while my body recovered slowly, my plan began to take shape. The next day, the lawyer came. His name was Mr. Davis. He was a man of about 50 with gray hair and a firm voice. He carried a worn leather briefcase and reading glasses that he put on and took off constantly. He sat next to my bed and listened to my full story. I told him about the stroke, about the coma, about the conversations I had heard about how Michael had given my house to Jessica's parents without my permission. He took notes, nodded, asked questions. "Is the house in your name?" "Yes, only in my name." "Do you have the deed?" "It is in my house in a drawer of the living room cabinet, along with other important documents." "Did your son sign anything in your name?" "I do not know, but if he did, it was without my consent, and I never gave him power of attorney." Mr. Davis took off his glasses and looked directly at me. "Mrs. Parker, what your son did is misappropriation. If he allowed other people to occupy your property without your consent, that is illegal. And if he forged your signature on any document, that is fraud." I felt something in my chest. It was not satisfaction, it was sadness, because we were talking about my son, about Michael, about the boy who had grown up in that house, who had promised to take care of me, and now I was there planning legal action against him. What can I do? First, I need to verify if there are forged documents. For that, I have to go to the Public Registry of Property and check if there is any recent movement on your house. Second, I need you to sign a legal power of attorney so I can act on your behalf. How long will it take? A few days, maybe a week. I do not have much money to pay you. He raised his hand. "Ma'am, this is part of a legal aid program. You do not have to pay me. I just want to help you recover what is yours." I felt tears in my eyes, tears of relief, of gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Davis. Do not thank me yet. Let's get your house back first." And so the plan was set in motion. That same afternoon, Mr. Davis brought the papers for the legal power of attorney. I read them carefully. I signed with a trembling but firm hand. "I'm going to start the investigations tomorrow myself," he said. "I will keep you informed." When he left, I stayed lying in bed, looking at the ceiling. For the first time in months, I felt something like hope. The next day, the doctor discharged me. "Your recovery has been remarkable, Mrs. Parker, but you have to continue with physical therapy. Take your medications and come for checkups every 2 weeks." "Yes, doctor, I will. Do you have somewhere to go?" That question hit me, because I did not. I did not have anywhere to go. My house was occupied by Jessica's parents, and I was not going to ask Michael for help. I have friends, I lied. The doctor did not seem convinced, but he nodded. "Very well, the nurse will give you the discharge papers and prescriptions. Take care of yourself." When he left, I sat on the bed dressed in the clothes the nurses had kept for me. The same clothes I wore the day of the stroke, now washed and folded a simple cream blouse jeans, my old shoes. I saw myself in the bathroom mirror. I had lost weight. My hair, which I had always kept well groomed, was completely white. I had new wrinkles around my eyes, my mouth. I looked old 60 years, and I felt as if I were 100, but I was alive, and that was what mattered. I called Mrs. Higgins, my old neighbor, the woman who had taken care of Michael when he was a child. She answered after 3 rings. "Hello, Mrs. Higgins. It is Emily." There was a silence. "Emily." "My God, I heard you had woken up. How are you?" I am fine. I am leaving the hospital today, and I need a favor. Tell me, dear, whatever you need. Can I stay with you for a few days, just until I resolve some things? Of course. Come whenever you want. My house is your house. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Thank you, Mrs. Higgins. Thank you. Do not thank me. See you soon. I left the hospital that afternoon. I did not call Michael. I did not want to see him yet. I took a taxi to Mrs. Higgins' house. She lived 3 streets from my house, 3 streets that felt like a world away. When I arrived, she was waiting for me at the door. She had aged since the last time I saw her. Now she was 82, her hair completely white, her back a little hunched, but her smile was the same. "Emily, my girl, so good to see you." She hugged me tight, and I, who had held back tears for days, finally cried. I cried in the arms of that woman who had known me for decades, who had seen Michael grow up, who knew my whole story. There, she said, stroking my hair, "You are here, you are safe." But I did not feel safe. I felt broken. Mrs. Higgins settled me in the guest room, a small room with a twin bed, an old dresser, and a window that looked out to the yard. "Rest all you need, and when you are ready, tell me what happened." But I could not rest. That night, after Mrs. Higgins went to sleep, I sat on the bed looking out the window. From there, I could see the lights of the neighboring houses, and if I leaned out a little, I could see my house. My house. The lights were on. There was a car parked outside that I did not recognize, surely Jessica's parents, strangers living in my home, sleeping in my beds, using my things. I felt rage, but I also felt something else. Determination. The next day, early in the morning, Mr. Davis called me on Mrs. Higgins' cell phone. "Mrs. Parker, I have news. Tell me." I went to the public registry of property. I reviewed all documents related to your house. There is no change of ownership. There is no sale. There is no document transferring the property to another person. I breathed relieved. So the house is still mine. Legally, yes, but there is a problem. Which one? Your son signed a commoditatum contract. What is that? It is a contract where the owner allows someone else to use their property for free for a set period. In this case, your son signed a contract in favor of Mr. Frank and Mrs. Sarah Miller, your daughter-in-law's parents, for a period of 2 years. I felt blood rushing to my head. But he had no right to sign that. The house is mine. Exactly. And there is the legal problem. Your son signed that contract using a power of attorney he claims to have over you. But when I reviewed the documents, I saw that power of attorney is fake. Fake, yes. The signature that appears as yours does not match your real signature, and the date of the document says it was signed a year ago. But according to my investigations, you never went to that notary office? I spoke with the notary, and he has no record of you being there that day. I closed my eyes. Michael had forged my signature. My own son. What does this mean? It means the contract is null and void, and it means we can proceed with a lawsuit for fraud and misappropriation. Also, we can request an immediate eviction order for the current occupants of your house. How long will it take? If we act fast and with the evidence we have, we could have a court order in 2 or 3 days. Afterwards, a sheriff will execute the eviction. We can also file criminal charges against your son for forgery of documents. My heart beat fast. Criminal charges against Michael. Mr. Davis, is there any way to recover my house without Michael going to jail? There was a silence. Mrs. Parker, I understand he is your son, but what he did is a serious crime. If we do not file charges, he could do it again or do something worse. I know, but... Can I think about it? Of course, but every day that passes is one more day those people live in your house illegally. I understand. Give me a day. Tomorrow, I will give you my answer. Okay, I will call you tomorrow. He hung up. I stayed there with the phone in my hand, trembling. That afternoon, I gathered courage and walked to my house. I just wanted to see it. I just wanted to know it was still there. I walked slowly, leaning on walls when I felt dizzy. The doctor had told me I should rest, but I could not. I needed to see my house. When I reached my street, I stopped. There it was, my brick-walled house, my wooden door, my window with the curtains I had sewn, but everything looked different. There were new planters at the entrance. Planters I had not put there. The paint on the door had been changed. Now it was a green color I would never have chosen. And in the yard, there were clothes hanging. Clothes that were not mine. I got closer, heart beating fast. I could see through the living room window, and what I saw broke my heart. There were new furniture. A big leather couch occupying the place where my old fabric sofa had been, a huge television on the wall, a glass coffee table. Everything of mine had disappeared as if I had never existed. Can I help you? I jumped. An older man was at the door. He must have been about 65 with gray hair and glasses. He wore a plaid shirt and jeans. Frank Jessica's father. Are you looking for someone? He looked at me with suspicion as if I were a stranger, as if I were not the owner of that house. Something inside me cracked, but I was not going to give him the pleasure of seeing me cry. I have the wrong house, I said with a calm voice. Excuse me. And I turned around. I walked back to Mrs. Higgins' house with tears running down my cheeks. But they were not tears of sadness, they were tears of rage. That night, I called Lawyer Davis. Mr. Davis, proceed with everything. Are you sure? Completely sure. I want my house back and I want justice to be done. Understood. I will file the documents tomorrow myself. In 3 days at the latest, we will have the court order. Thank you. Mrs. Parker, I know this is hard, but you are doing the right thing. I know. I hung up. I sat on the bed looking out the window towards my house, and for the first time in a long time, I felt I had control. Michael and Jessica thought they could take everything from me. They thought I was weak, that I was a victim. But they were wrong, and soon they would know. The next 3 days were the longest of my life, not because of physical pain. That was already diminishing. The therapy I did every morning at Mrs. Higgins' house was working. I could walk without getting dizzy. I could hold a cup of coffee without trembling. No, what consumed me was the wait for the court order, the wait for all this to end, Mr. Davis called me every afternoon with updates. I already filed the lawsuit, Mrs. Parker. The judge is reviewing the documents. We need one more signature and additional witness. Each call filled me with anxiety and hope at the same time. Mrs. Higgins tried to keep me distracted. Come, Emily, help me make these cookies. Let's watch the soap opera. Tell me how you feel today. She was kind patient, but I could not concentrate on anything other than my house, on recovering what was mine and facing Michael. The second day after leaving the hospital, Michael finally came looking for me. Mrs. Higgins warned me from the door. Emily, your son is here. I felt my stomach turn. Do you want me to tell him you are not here? No, let him in. I needed to see him. I needed to look him in the eye. Michael entered the living room with an insecure step. He looked tired, thinner than the last time I had seen him at the hospital. Mom, sit down. He sat on the armchair across from me. Mrs. Higgins disappeared discreetly towards the kitchen. We stayed in silence for a long moment. He looked at the floor. I looked at him. Finally, he spoke. I did not know you had left the hospital. I would have gone to pick you up, to take me where Michael to my house. The house you gave to your in-laws. He shuddered. Mom, I thought you were going to die. The doctors said that. The doctors never said I was going to die. They said they did not know how long I would be in a coma. There is a difference. I was scared. Scared of what? Of being left with a sick mother, of having to take care of me. No, it is not that. I was scared of losing you. And when Jessica suggested that... Jessica, I could not avoid the bitter tone. Of course, Jessica. She just wanted to help. Help giving my house to her parents is helping. They needed a place to live. They had sold their house to pay debts, and I needed my house too. Michael, that house I bought with my sweat. That house where I raised you. My voice broke at the end. He covered his face with his hands. I am sorry, Mom. I am so sorry. Why did you do it? He looked up. His eyes were red. Why? Because I did not know what else to do. The hospital was so expensive. And Jessica kept saying we had to be practical, that your house was empty, that her parents would take care of it, that you were not coming back. But I came back. Yes. His voice was barely a whisper. You came back. And now what are we going to do? I do not know, Mom. Jessica's parents already settled in. They brought all their furniture. They made changes to the house, painting repairs. Without my permission, I know. Do you know what you did, Michael? Do you have any idea? He looked at me confused. You forged my signature. You signed a contract with a fake power of attorney. That is fraud. It is a criminal offense. He went pale. How do you know that? Because I hired a lawyer, and he investigated. And he found the document with my forged signature. Mom, I did not. Was it Jessica who... Jessica forged my signature. He stayed quiet. Answer me, Michael. She knew someone, a notary who did the papers. I just signed as a witness. I closed my eyes. So it was worse than I thought. Not only had they taken my house, they had planned everything. They had conspired, and you did not think it was wrong. I thought that you were not going to wake up. His voice was weak. I thought you would never find out. I opened my eyes and looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw a man I no longer recognized, a weak man, manipulated, lost. Michael, I am 60 years old. I have worked all my life. I have survived losing your father. I have survived poverty. I have survived 6 months in a coma, and I am going to survive this too. Mom, I am going to recover my house, with or without your help. What are you going to do? I already did it. I filed a lawsuit. In 1 or 2 days, there will be an eviction order, and Jessica's parents will have to leave. He stood up upset. You cannot do that. They do not have anywhere to go. I did not have anywhere to go, Michael. My voice boomed in the small living room. He froze. I woke up from a coma, and my own son told me to find another place to live. Do you have any idea how that felt? Tears were running down my face now. I spent 6 months fighting for my life, 6 months in the dark. And when I finally returned, the first thing I heard was that they had taken everything from me. My house, my home, my place in the world. Mom, please. No, Michael. There is no please anymore. I already made my decision. Jessica is going to kill me if I do this. And there it was. The truth. He did not care about me. He cared about Jessica. Then you already know who to choose. He stood there, shoulders slumped, defeated. What do you want me to do? I want you to talk to Jessica's parents. I want you to tell them they have 3 days to vacate my house before the sheriff arrives. They're going to need more time. I needed more time to recover from the coma. But life does not give us what we need, Michael. It gives us what we deserve. And what do I deserve? I looked him straight in the eyes. You are going to have to decide that yourself. He left shortly after without hugging me, without saying anything else. He just turned around and left. Mrs. Higgins came out of the kitchen when she heard the door close. Are you okay, dear? I do not know, Mrs. Higgins. I do not know. She hugged me, and I cried again. But this time they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of liberation, because finally I had said everything I needed to say. That night I could not sleep. I lay in bed looking at the ceiling, thinking about everything. I thought about Michael when he was a child, about how he hugged me, about how he told me he loved me. I thought about his graduation day, how he had looked for me in the crowd to smile at me. I thought about all the promises he had made me. When I grow up, I am going to take care of you. I am never going to leave you alone. You are the most important thing to me. When had everything changed? When had he become this man who puts his wife before his own mother? At what moment did I lose my son? The next day in the morning, Mr. Davis called me, Mrs. Parker. I have good news. The judge approved the eviction order. It will be executed the day after tomorrow at 10 in the morning. I felt my heart beating faster. So soon, yes. The judge saw the evidence of the forgery and considered it an urgent case. There is also an arrest warrant against your son and against the person who forged the documents, but that will be executed after the eviction. Arrest warrant. Yes, for fraud and forgery of documents, but we can still stop that if you want. If your son returns the house voluntarily and admits the crime, we can reach an agreement. I close my eyes. Arrest warrant. My son could go to jail. Give me until tomorrow. I'm going to talk to him. Okay, but the eviction stands. That cannot be stopped. I understand. I hung up. Mrs. Higgins looked at me from the kitchen door. Are you going to give him another chance? I do not know, but I need to try one last time. That afternoon, I went looking for Michael. Not at my house. I did not want to see Jessica's parents yet. I went to his work. It was an office building downtown Modern with glass walls and security at the entrance. I asked the guard to call Michael. Tell him his mother is here. The guard made the call. Minutes later, Michael came down. He looked surprised. Mom, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you. Can we go somewhere? He looked at his watch. I have a meeting in half an hour. This is more important. He sighed. There is a coffee shop a block away. We sat at a table in the back. He ordered a coffee. I ordered a tea. When the drinks arrived, I spoke. The day after tomorrow at 10 in the morning, a sheriff is going to arrive at the house. He's going to execute an eviction order. Jessica's parents have to leave. Michael went pale. Did you already do it? Yes, Mom, they do not have anywhere to go. That is not my problem, Michael. That is your problem. You put them there, you take them out. And what do you want me to do? Put them on the street. I want you to find a solution, but let it not be at the expense of my house. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Jessica is going to leave me if I do this. And there it was again. Jessica. Always Jessica. And what about me, Michael? Do not I matter? Yes, you matter, Mom, but what? But she is more important. He did not answer. and that silence was all the answer I needed. I stood up. There is something else you need to know. What there is an arrest warrant against you for fraud, but I can still stop it if you do the right thing. The right thing, give me back my house. Admit you made a mistake, and make sure Jessica's parents leave in peace. Do that, and I drop the criminal charges. He looked at me with wide eyes. You would send me to jail. I do not want to do it, Michael. You are my son. But if you force me, yes, I will do it. I cannot believe you are saying this. I cannot believe many things that have happened either. But here we are. I turned to go. Mom, wait. I stopped, but I did not turn around. What happened to us? His voice sounded broken. When did we become... This I turned slowly. We became this when you stopped being my son and became only Jessica's husband, and I left the coffee shop. That night, Michael called me. Mom, I talked to Jessica. I talked to her parents. They are going to vacate the house tomorrow. I felt huge relief. Really, yes. They are not happy. Jessica is furious with me, but they are going to leave. Thank you, Michael. Are you going to drop the charges? If everything goes well tomorrow, yes. Okay. There was a long silence. Mom, I am sorry. I really am sorry. I know. Will you forgive me someday I close my eyes? I do not know, Michael. Maybe. But that is going to take time. I understand. I love you, my son. I am always going to love you. But that does not mean I am going to let you hurt me again. I understand. We hung up, and I stayed there sitting on the bed with the phone in my hand, feeling empty and full at the same time. Empty because I had lost something with my son that would never be the same. Full because for the first time in a long time I had defended myself. Eviction day dawned gray. Heavy clouds covered the Chicago sky, threatening rain. The air was humid, dense. I woke up early at 6 in the morning, although the eviction order was for 10. I had not been able to sleep well. I tossed and turned in bed all night thinking about what was going to happen. In a few hours, I would return to my house, but I did not know in what state I would find it. I did not know what Jessica's parents had done with my things, with my furniture, with my memories. Mrs. Higgins prepared coffee and muffins for breakfast. You have to eat something, Emily. It is going to be a long day. I tried to eat, but the food got stuck in my throat. I cannot, Mrs. Higgins. I am too nervous. I know, dear, but you need strength. I took a sip of coffee. It was hot, comforting. Do you want me to go with you? No, this is something I have to do alone. She nodded, understanding. But if you need me, just call. I will be here. Thank you. At 9:30, I left Mrs. Higgins's house. I walked slowly towards my street. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. When I reached the corner, I saw there was already an official car parked in front of my house. It was white with official letters on the side. Lawyer Mr. Davis was standing next to the car talking to a uniformed man. It must be Officer Stevens. When he saw me, the lawyer came towards me. Mrs. Parker, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Davis. How do you feel? Nervous? It is understandable. Let me introduce you to Officer Stevens. He is the one who is going to execute the order. The officer was a man of about 40 with a mustache and a serious expression. He extended his hand. Mrs. Parker, I am sorry you have to go through this. Thank you. Do you know if the people occupying the property are aware of the eviction? My son told them yesterday. They said they were going to vacate voluntarily. Good. That will make things easier. But anyway, I have to execute the order formally. I looked towards my house. The curtains were closed. There were no signs of movement. Are they still there? That is what we are going to find out. At 10 sharp, Officer Stevens knocked on the door. He knocked 3 times hard. Officer. Sheriff's office opened the door. We waited. Nothing. He knocked again. You have an eviction order. Open the door or I will have to force entry. Finally, the door opened. Frank Jessica's father was there. He looked tired, defeated. He wore a wrinkled shirt and jeans. "We are leaving," he said with a hoarse voice. "Are you vacating the property?" "Yes, we are just finishing packing. You have 30 minutes. Frank nodded and stepped aside. The officer entered first, then Lawyer Davis, and finally me. I entered my own house for the first time in over half a year, and what I saw broke my heart. Everything was different. The walls I had painted cream were now white. The red tile floor I had worked so hard to lay now had rugs over it. The living room where my old floral fabric sofa had been now had that big leather couch I had seen through the window. The glass coffee table, a modern lamp that did not match anything. On the walls were photos of Jessica's family. Photos I did not know, people I had never seen, as if my life, my history had been erased. Where is my furniture? My voice came out trembling. Frank was putting things in a box. We stored them in the backyard shed. We thought that you were not coming back. The shed, my furniture. My memories cornered in a shed like trash. I walked towards the kitchen. My wooden table, the one I had painted myself, had disappeared. In its place was a glass table with metal chairs. My old stove, where I had cooked thousands of meals for Michael, had been replaced by a new shiny stove. Even the dishes had been changed. My chipped mugs were no longer there, my ceramic plates with flowers. Everything was new, modern, impersonal. "Where is Mrs. Sarah?" asked the officer. "In the bedroom packing." I walked towards the bedrooms. The one that had been my room now had a king-size bed which I did not recognize. The curtains were different. The closet was full of clothes that were not mine. In Michael's bedroom, the one that had been his childhood room, I found Sarah. She was a woman of about 60, thin, with dyed brown hair and pearl earrings. She was folding clothes and putting them in suitcases. When she saw me, she stopped. We looked at each other in silence for a moment. "Mrs. Parker," she said finally. Her voice was cold. "I did not think you were going to come back." "Well, I came back. Michael told us you were very sick, that probably you would not wake up." Michael was wrong. She went back to folding clothes with abrupt movements. "This is not fair. We did not have anywhere to go. Michael offered us this house. We did nothing wrong except live in a house that was not yours without my permission. Your permission was not necessary. You were in a coma. Michael had the right to... Michael had no right. This house is mine, only mine, and you knew it." She closed the suitcase forcefully. "Jessica was right about you. You are a selfish woman." Those words hit me like a slap. Selfish for wanting to recover my own house, for not thinking about your son, for putting him in this position. Jessica is furious with him. Their marriage is... If my son's marriage is in trouble, it is because he made bad decisions, not because of me. You do not understand. I understand perfectly. You took advantage of my illness, and now that I woke up, you are upset because you have to face the consequences. Sarah looked at me with eyes full of rage. "Someday you are going to be alone, Mrs. Parker, completely alone, and you are going to understand what it is to lose everything." Her words were left floating in the air. Officer Stevens appeared at the door. "Ma'am, you have 20 minutes to finish packing." Sarah took her suitcases and left the room without looking at me. I stayed there, standing in what had been Michael's room, feeling a huge weight on my chest. I went out to the patio. I needed air. I needed to see my apple tree. But when I reached the patio, I stopped dead. The apple tree had been pruned, severely pruned. The branches that previously reached the roof of the house were now short stumps. There were no apples, no green leaves, only naked branches like dry bones pointing at the gray sky. "What did you do to it?" I whispered. Frank was taking boxes out of the shed. The tree was growing too much. It was in the way. We had it pruned. It was in the way, yes. The branches reached the bedroom window and the apples fell and dirtied the patio. I felt tears burning in my eyes. That tree I had planted myself with my own hands 25 years ago. I had cared for it. I had watered it every day. I had seen every branch grow. I had harvested every apple, and they had mutilated it as if it were nothing. It was my tree, I said with a broken voice. Frank shrugged. It will grow back. But I knew it would not be the same. It would never be the same. Half an hour later, Frank and Sarah finished packing. They had 4 large suitcases, several boxes and trash bags full of clothes. Officer Stevens supervised while they loaded everything into their car. I stayed at the door watching. When they finished, Frank approached. "We are going to leave the keys on the kitchen table." "Okay, take care, Mrs. Parker." I did not answer. Sarah passed by me without saying anything, but she shot me a look full of resentment. They got in the car and left. Officer Stevens handed me some papers. "The eviction has been executed. The property is yours again. Here are the official documents." "Thank you, officer. If you have any problem, if they try to return, call us immediately." "I will." The officer and Mr. Davis also left shortly after, and finally I was left alone in my house. I entered slowly. The silence was absolute. I walked through the living room, touching the walls. They smelled different of new paint of strangers. I went to the kitchen. The shiny stove looked at me like an insult. I went to my bedroom. The huge bed occupied the whole space. I went to Michael's room. It was empty now, only the marks on the walls where they had hung things. And finally, I went out to the patio. I sat on the concrete floor in front of the pruned apple tree, and I cried. I cried for everything I had lost. Not only the months in a coma, not only my furniture, my decoration, my home as I knew it. I cried for my son, for the sweet boy who hugged me and told me he loved me, for the young man who promised to take care of me always, for the man who should have been on my side, but who chose his wife over his mother. I cried because I had won my house, but I had lost my son, and that loss hurt more than anything else. I do not know how long I sat there. The sky darkened. The clouds finally opened and it started to rain. Thick, cold drops falling on my head, my back, but I did not move. I let the rain soak me. I let it wash my tears. And in the middle of that rain, I made a promise to myself. I was going to rebuild my house. I was going to give it back its soul. I was going to bring my furniture from the shed. I was going to remove that white paint and give the cream color back to the walls. I was going to take care of my apple tree until it bore fruit again. And if Michael wanted to be part of my life again, he would have to earn it, because I was no longer the mother who forgave everything unconditionally. I was no longer the woman who stayed quiet. I was Emily Parker, and I had survived worse things than this. When it finally stopped raining, I got up, soaked body aching but head held high. I entered my house. I went to the patio shed. There were my things piled up like trash. My floral fabric sofa, my painted wooden table, my chipped mugs, my ceramic plates with flowers all covered in dust, forgotten, but still there. I took one of my mugs, cleaned it with the sleeve of my blouse, took it to the kitchen, put water to heat on that new stove I hated, prepared coffee, and sat on the kitchen floor because I still hadn't brought my table, and drank that coffee in my old mug. It tasted of home, of resistance, of dignity, and in that moment, I knew I was going to be okay. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday I was going to be okay. I spent the first night alone in my house, not in my bed. That huge bed Jessica's parents had left was not mine. I did not want to sleep there. I slept on the floral fabric sofa I had taken out of the shed. I cleaned it as best as I could, dusted it with a damp cloth, and lay down there. It was uncomfortable. The flowers were faded, the cushions flattened after years of use, but it was mine. And that night, for the first time in months, I slept in peace. The next day, I woke up early. The sun was just rising when I opened my eyes. The light came through the old curtains I had also rescued from the shed. I got up slowly. My body was still weak, but every day I felt a little stronger. I made coffee in my old coffee pot. I used my chipped mug. I sat in my wooden chair by the kitchen window. And while I drank that coffee, looking at the patio where my apple tree tried to survive with its mutilated branches, I made a decision. I was not going to stay in bitterness. I was not going to live the rest of my life remembering what they had taken from me. I was going to rebuild. I was going to heal. I was going to forgive. But forgiving did not mean forgetting, and forgiving did not mean allowing it to happen again. That morning, I called Lawyer Davis. "Good morning, Mrs. Parker. How was the night in your house, good Mr. Davis? Thank you for everything you did for me." "You do not have to thank me. Have you decided what you are going to do with the criminal charges against your son?" I breathed deep. "I want to drop them." There was a silence. "Are you sure?" "Yes. My son made a mistake, a serious mistake. But I do not want him to go to jail. I want him to learn. I want him to live with the consequences of his decisions, but not that way. I understand. I will proceed with dropping the charges. But Mrs. Parker, you have to understand that if he does something like this again, he will not, because I am not going to give him the chance. What do you mean, I want you to prepare a will? A will where it is clear that my house, my assets, everything I have will be donated to a charity foundation when I die. My son is not going to inherit anything." Mr. Davis coughed, surprised. "Ma'am, are you completely sure of that?" "Completely. I worked all my life for this house. I built it with my sweat. And I am not going to allow someone who showed not to value it to keep it when I am no longer here. I understand. I will prepare the documents. Thank you, Mr. Davis." I hung up, and I felt something strange in my chest. It was not sadness. It was not rage. It was liberation, because finally I had taken control of my own life. The following days I spent cleaning. I took out all the furniture Jessica's parents had left. The leather couch, the glass table, the huge bed, the modern lamps. I piled them in the yard covered with plastic. Michael could come pick them up whenever he wanted, or they could stay there until they rotted. I did not care. Little by little, I brought my things from the shed. My painted wooden table went back to the kitchen. My mismatched chairs, my old stove. I had to pay a plumber to reconnect it, but it was worth it. In the living room, I placed my floral sofa, my wooden coffee table with burns from hot cups, my floor lamp with the yellow fabric shade. I hung my old curtains, my cheap paintings bought at the flea market, and slowly the house began to look like what it had been again, like my home. One afternoon while I was painting the living room walls, returning that cream color I liked so much to them, someone knocked on the door. It was Michael. I had not seen him since the day of the eviction. It had been a week already. He looked terrible. Deep, dark circles, unshaven beard, wrinkled clothes. Mom. Michael. We stood looking at each other for a moment. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He entered slowly, looking around, seeing the changes, the old furniture I had put back, the half-painted walls. "Are you fixing everything?" "Yes. I am returning the house to how it was before. Mom, about what happened. I do not want to talk about that now, Michael. But I need you to know I am sorry." "Do you really feel sorry?" I turned to look at him. "Do you feel sorry because it was wrong, or do you feel sorry because you got caught?" He stayed quiet. "Michael." I dropped the criminal charges. "You are not going to jail." His eyes lit up with relief. "Really?" "Yes. But there are conditions." "Which ones?" "First, you never make decisions about my life, my assets, or my health without my explicit consent again. Second, if I ever become sick or incapacitated again, there is a legal document specifying exactly who has the power of decision over me, and it is not you." I saw him go pale. "Mom, third condition. I changed my will. This house, everything I have, will be donated when I die. You are not going to inherit anything." "What you heard right, but I am your son. I am your only son. And I was your mother. Your only mother." And yet you left me with nothing when you thought I was not going to wake up." Tears started running down his face. "Mom, please, I know I screwed up. I know I made the worst decision of my life. But I am still your son. I know. And that is why I dropped the charges. That is why you are not in jail. But that does not mean I am going to reward what you did by leaving you everything I have. And what do you want me to do? What can I do to fix it?" I approached him. "I want you to learn. I want you to understand that decisions have consequences. I want you to value the people who love you before it is too late. I value you, Mom. I love you. Then prove it. Not with words, with actions. How you have to discover that yourself." He stayed there standing in the middle of my living room crying like I had not seen him cry since he was a child. And a part of me wanted to hug him, wanted to tell him everything was okay, that I forgave him completely, but I did not, because it was not okay, and complete forgiveness had to be earned. "You can come visit me whenever you want," I said softly, "but I am no longer the mother who says yes to everything. I am no longer the woman who sacrifices without limits. I am Emily, and if you want a relationship with me, it is going to be on my terms." He nodded, wiping his tears. "I understand. How are things with Jessica?" His face darkened. "Not good. She is very angry. She says I chose my mother over her, that I humiliated her in front of her parents. And what did you tell her that I did the right thing, that I should have done it from the beginning?" I felt something in my chest, something like pride. "Did you really tell her that?" "Yes. And she says she needs time, that she does not know if she can stay married to me. And what do you want? I do not know, Mom. I love Jessica, but I cannot keep being the person I was, the person who let her make all the decisions, the person who hurt you to please her." I sat on my floral sofa. "Michael, sit down." He sat next to me. "When your dad died, I was 30. I was alone with an 8-year-old boy without money. It would have been easy to give up. It would have been easy to let bitterness consume me. But you did not. No, because I decided I was going to be stronger than my circumstances. I decided I was going to build a dignified life for you and for me." I looked him straight in the eyes. "Now you are in a similar moment. You have to decide what kind of man you want to be. A man who lets himself be manipulated, or a man who makes his own decisions even if they are hard. And if Jessica leaves me, then she was not the right person for you. But I love her. Love is not enough, Michael. You also need respect. You need your partner to value you as a person, not just as a provider or as an extension of herself." He stayed in silence, thinking. "Did you love Dad?" I smiled sadly. "A lot. But what I value most about our relationship was not just love. It was mutual respect. It was that he never asked me to stop being who I was, and I never asked that of him. Jessica. Jessica has always wanted to change me. I know. How do you know? Because I saw it from the first day I met her. I saw how she looked at you, how she looked at your clothes, your car, your life, as if everything needed to improve. Why did you never say anything? Because you were happy. Or I thought you were happy and I wanted you to be happy. I do not know if I have been happy, Mom. Honestly, I do not know." I took his hand. "Then you have to figure it out. But do it for you, not for her, not for me. For you." He nodded. We sat in silence for a long while. Finally, Michael spoke. "Are you ever going to trust me again?" I thought about my answer carefully. "I do not know, son. Trust is like a mirror. Once it breaks, you can glue it. But you will always see the cracks. I understand. But that does not mean we cannot try. It just means it is going to take time. How much time, I do not know. Maybe months. Maybe years. Maybe it never goes back to how it was before. But we can build something new, something different, something better maybe, if we are both willing to work on it." He stood up. Thank you, Mom, for not sending me to jail, for giving me another chance. You are my son. You are always going to have chances with me, but you are not going to have free passes anymore. He smiled weakly. Understood. He walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned around. Can I come help you paint? I looked at the half-finished walls. Do you really want to? Yes, I would like to spend time with you, doing something together, like before. I felt tears in my eyes, but I held them back. Come on, Saturday, early. I'm going to make coffee and sweet bread. His smile grew bigger. I will be there. And he left. That night, I sat on the patio, in front of the apple tree. Its branches were still bare, but if I looked carefully, I could see small green shoots starting to appear. New life, growth. After the brutal pruning, the tree was healing, like me. I took my cup of coffee and raised it to the sky, to new beginnings. I whispered to dignity, to strength. And I took a sip. It tasted bitter, but it also tasted like victory. The following Saturday, Michael arrived at 8 in the morning. He brought a bag with pastries from a bakery nearby, the same one where I bought when he was a child. I brought cinnamon rolls and turnovers, your favorites. I smiled. Thank you. I made coffee. We sat in the kitchen at my painted wooden table, and for the first time in years, we had breakfast together without tension, without Jessica interrupting, without urgent calls from work, just him and me, like in the old days. After breakfast, we painted. Michael put on an old t-shirt and we started painting the living room walls. Cream color, the color I loved. We worked in silence most of the time, a comfortable silence, not awkward. Mid-morning, while we were painting, Michael spoke. Mom, do you remember when I was a kid and helped you sell pies at the square? I smiled. Of course I remember. You carried that heavy box without complaining. I wanted to help you. I wanted you to be proud of me. I have always been proud of you, Michael. Even now, I stopped painting and looked at him. I am disappointed by what you did, but I am still proud of the man you can become. And if I do not become him, then it will be your decision. But I am going to keep waiting, because you are my son, and sons always have a chance to grow. He went back to painting, but I saw tears running down his cheeks. I said nothing. I just kept painting beside him. By the end of the day, the walls were finished. Cream color. Perfect. The house started looking like before, like my home. Michael stayed until late. We had dinner together, casserole with rice. Simple food, but made with love. When he left, he hugged me tight. Thank you, Mom. Why for not giving up on me? I am never going to give up on you, but I am also not going to allow you to hurt me again. I know, and I will not, I promise you. Let it not just be words, Michael. Let it be actions. They will be. And he left. I stayed at the door watching him walk to his car, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. Not hope that everything would go back to how it was before, but hope that we could build something new, something stronger, something based on respect, on healthy boundaries, on true love. Not on blind sacrifice, but on mutual dignity. 3 months passed, 3 months where my life, little by little, found its rhythm again. My house was completely restored. The cream-colored walls, my old furniture. In its place, the apple tree with new green leaves sprouting small but firm. I went back to selling pies at the square on weekends. Not because I needed the money, but because I liked it. Because it made me feel useful, because it connected me with the people of my neighborhood. Emily, so good to see you back. We thought you were gone. We heard you were very sick. And I smiled and told them, without giving many details, that I had been in the hospital, but I was fine now. Life went on. Michael came to visit me every 2 weeks. Sometimes he brought pastries. Sometimes he just came to sit with me on the patio and drink coffee. We did not talk much about what had happened. That was already said, but slowly we were rebuilding something. It was not like before. It would never be like before, but it was something new. Something more honest. One Saturday, while we were drinking coffee under the apple tree, I asked him, "How are things with Jessica?" He stayed quiet for a moment. She left. She left, yes, a month ago. She said she could not be with someone who chose his mother over her. I felt something tighten in my chest. "I am sorry, son. I am not." I looked at him surprised. No, Mom. I realized something after she left. I realized that during all those years, I was trying to be someone I was not, trying to please her, trying to be enough for her. And I never was. I never was going to be. "How do you feel, Free?" He smiled sadly. "For the first time in years, I feel free." I took his hand. "I am happy for you. Really, really. You deserve someone who loves you as you are not someone who wants to change you." He nodded. Her parents also left. They rented a small apartment in another neighborhood. Frank had to go back to work. Sarah is doing odd jobs to help with expenses. I said nothing. I did not feel satisfaction or joy for their situation, just acceptance, the natural consequences of decisions. One afternoon while I was watering the apple tree, Mrs. Higgins came to visit me. "Emily, can I come in?" Of course, Mrs. Higgins. "Come in." We entered the kitchen. "I made coffee. How have you been, dear good?" "Every day better. I am very glad to see you like this. When you woke up from the coma, I thought you were not going to make it. I thought so too, but here I am. And your son, how is he? He is finding himself, I think." Jessica left him. Mrs. Higgins nodded. "I know. I met Jessica 2 weeks ago at the market." "Oh, yeah, yes. She looked different, thinner, with unkempt hair. Nothing like the Jessica we knew. Did you talk a little? She told me she was living with her parents, that Michael had disappointed her, that she could not believe he had put her in that situation." I took a sip of coffee. "And what did you tell her?" I told her that decisions have consequences, and that maybe she should have thought about that before taking her mother-in-law's house. I could not help smiling a little. "Did you really tell her that?" "Of course. Someone had to tell her." Mrs. Higgins winked at me. 2 weeks later, I received a call. It was a number I did not recognize, but I answered. "Mrs. Emily Parker." "Yes, it is me. This is Ms. Thompson from the hospital where you were admitted. I am calling you because we have been reviewing your case and we would like to ask you some questions. Questions about what? About the medical decisions that were made during your coma and about who authorized them. I felt a chill. What kind of decisions? Well, according to our records, your son signed several documents authorizing treatments and procedures. But now that we have reviewed the files, we realize that some of those documents have irregularities. What kind of irregularities? I would prefer not to discuss it over the phone. Could you come to the hospital this week? Yes, I can go. Perfect. Does Thursday at 2 in the afternoon work for you? Yes, I will be there. I hung up. What else had Michael done while I was in a coma? On Thursday, I went to the hospital. Miss Thompson was a woman of about 40, serious, with glasses and hair pulled back in a tight bun. She received me in her office. "Mrs. Parker, thank you for coming. I know this must be uncomfortable for you. What did you find?" She opened a folder. "During your coma, your son authorized several treatments and procedures. Some of them were necessary, but others were not. Like which ones?" For example, he authorized the suspension of certain early rehabilitation treatments that would have helped prevent muscle atrophy and would have facilitated your recovery. I felt blood rushing to my head. Why would he do that? Ms. Thompson looked at me with compassion. "According to the nurse's notes, your daughter-in-law was pressuring to let you go in peace, not to prolong your suffering unnecessarily. But I was not suffering. I was in a coma. I know, and that is why we are reviewing the case. We also found that your son tried to access your life insurance while you were unconscious." "My life insurance?" "Yes, you have a small policy, $20,000. Your son tried to collect it, arguing that you had no chance of recovery. but the insurance company refused because you were still alive. I was speechless. Michael had tried to collect my insurance while I fought for my life. Is there any legal action you want to take? Ms. Thompson asked. I closed my eyes. No, I already did what I had to do. I already set limits, but thank you for informing me. Are you sure? Yes, life is already taking care of giving the necessary lessons. I did not say anything to Michael about what Ms. Thompson had told me, not because I wanted to protect him, but because it no longer mattered. I had already taken the decisions I had to take. I had already set the limits I needed, and life was already doing its job. I learned from Mrs. Higgins that Jessica had to sell her jewelry. The jewelry she liked to show off so much, the gold earrings, the pearl necklace, the expensive watch, all sold to help her parents pay rent. I also learned that Michael had been fired from his job, not for poor performance, but because the company was cutting staff. And he, without Jessica's support, without the appearance of success she demanded, had been one of the first on the list. I felt no joy hearing these things, only understanding. Karma is simply life responding to our decisions. One Sunday afternoon, Michael came to visit me. He looked tired but calmer than before. Mom, I lost my job. I know. How Mrs. Higgins told me. We sat on the patio. The apple tree now had branches full of leaves. There were still no apples, but it looked alive strong. What are you going to do? I do not know. I am looking for another job, but meanwhile, I am selling some things, simplifying my life. How do you feel about that? Honestly, good. I realized I had a lot of things I did not need, things I bought to impress Jessica, to impress her parents, to seem more successful than I was. And now I just want to live honestly. Work hard, be a better person, a better son. I looked at him. You are growing, Michael. I had to fall first. Sometimes it is necessary. He took a sip of coffee. Mom, I know you changed your will. I know I am not going to inherit anything. That is right. And it is okay. I understand. I deserve it. It is not about what you deserve. It is about protecting what I built and making sure that if something happens to me, it helps people who really need it. He nodded. Can I ask you something, Are you ever going to be able to forgive me completely? I thought about my answer. I already forgave you, Michael. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting, and it does not mean things go back to how they were before. It means I am letting go of resentment. It means I am giving you the chance to be better. But trust that you have to earn again. I will. I promise you. Do not promise me. Just do it. He smiled. I will. That night I sat alone on the patio. The stars shone in the dark sky. The air smelled of wet earth. It had rained early in the afternoon. I looked at the apple tree. Its leaves moved gently with the breeze, and I thought about everything that had happened. The stroke, the coma, the waking up, the betrayal, the struggle, the recovery. And I realized something. I did not need revenge. I did not need to destroy anyone. Life had taken care of everything. Michael had lost his marriage, his job, his appearance of success. Jessica had lost her status, her comfort, her control. Jessica's parents had lost their house, their peace of mind, their comfortable retirement. Not because of me, because of their own decisions. Life always collects its debts. I whispered to the wind, and I took a sip of my coffee. It tasted of peace. 6 months have passed since I woke up from the coma. 6 months since I came back to life and discovered that everything had changed. Today is Sunday. The sun enters through my kitchen window, illuminating my cup of coffee and the plate with pastries I bought yesterday at the neighborhood bakery. I am sitting at my painted wooden table. The same table where Michael did his homework when he was a child. The same table where I've had thousands of coffees throughout my life. Outside in the patio, my apple tree has its first apple. Just one. Small. Still green. But it is there. After the brutal pruning, after being left naked and wounded, the tree bore fruit again. Like me. Michael found a job 2 months ago. It is not the same type of job he had before. It is not in a fancy office with an impressive title. It is in a small accounting firm helping local businesses with their taxes. He earns less, but he is calmer. He comes to visit me every week now. Sometimes he brings flowers from the market. Sometimes he just brings his presents. And that is enough. Last week he helped me fix a leak in the roof. We worked together, in silence, like before. When we finished, we sat on the patio and drank lemonade. "Mom," he said, looking at the apple tree. "It has an apple." "Yes. The first one since they pruned it. It is going to grow back strong, like all things that survive storms." He looked at me. "Are you talking about the tree or about you?" I smiled. Both. I have not heard from Jessica again. Mrs. Higgins told me she moved with her parents to another city, far from here, far from memories. I wish her the best, truly, because holding a grudge only poisons the one who holds it, and I no longer have space in my heart for poison. This morning, while I was watering the apple tree, I thought about everything I learned. I learned that love without limits is not love. It is self-destruction. I learned that forgiving does not mean allowing them to hurt you again. I learned that brotherhood is more important than keeping the peace at any cost. I learned that sometimes the people you love are going to disappoint you, and that it is okay to feel pain for that, but it is also okay to move on. I learned that karma is not revenge. It is simply life responding to our decisions. And I learned that it is never too late to start over. I am 60 years old. I am not young, but I am not finished either. I can still bake pies. I can still paint walls. I can still plant trees and watch them grow. I can still live. Yesterday, a young woman came to buy pies from me at the square. She was about 30, with a small child by the hand. "Ma'am, do you still have meat pies?" "Yes, honey. How many do you want?" "6, please." While I was packing the pies, I noticed her eyes were red, as if she had been crying. "Are you okay?" She nodded quickly. Yes, it has just been a hard day." I handed her the pies. Life is hard sometimes, but it always passes. Always. She looked at me with bright eyes. "Do you believe so? I know so, because I have also had hard days. Many. But here I am." She smiled weakly. "Thank you, ma'am. You are welcome, honey. Take care." She left with her child, and I stayed thinking. Maybe that is my new mission in this life. To remind people that hard days pass, that storms end, that after darkness there is always light. This afternoon, Michael is coming to eat. I am going to make his favorite dish, casserole with rice. We are going to sit at the kitchen table like before, and we are going to talk about simple things, about life, about the future. We are not going to talk about the past. That is already said. We are going to build something new, something based on respect, on honesty, on healthy boundaries, and maybe someday we will have complete trust again, or maybe not. But that is okay. Because the important thing is not to go back to being as we were. The important thing is to be better than we were. If you are listening to this story, if you got this far, I want you to know something. It does not matter how dark your day is. It does not matter who betrayed you. It does not matter how lost you feel. There is always a way out. There is always a way to start over. I woke up from a coma and discovered that they had taken everything from me. My house, my dignity, my place in the world. But I did not give up. I fought. I got up. I set limits. I recovered what was mine. And if I could do it at 60 years old after 6 months, in a coma after losing almost everything, you can too. You do not need revenge. You just need dignity. You do not need to destroy anyone. You just need to protect yourself. And above all, you need to remember that you deserve respect. Even from the people you love, especially from the people you love. My name is Emily Parker. I am 60 years old, And this was my story, the story of how I lost almost everything and how I recovered it. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with dignity, with limits, and with the certainty that I deserve to be treated with respect. If my story helps a single woman open her eyes, set limits, defend her dignity, it will have been worth it. Thank you for listening to me until the end. God bless you. And remember, after the storm, always, always the sun comes out again.